Live here. All right, welcome back, Veterans of Politics International. Happy to be here today. I'm Robert Kurth. I'm the moderator today. We have our panel members here. We have candidates here for Congressional District 4. I'd like to welcome all of you. We have Ken Wegner, Rodney Smith, Bill Townsend, David Gibbs, and Gregg Luckner. And our panel members today, could you introduce yourselves?
Michael McDonald, VIPI Legislative Council, Family Civil Liberties Union, Restoring Freedom, and Reforming Family Courts.
John Moore, U.S. Army, former Assemblyman.
Robert Adams, U.S. Army, Desert Storm Vet.
Nathan Atkins, U.S. Army.
Petarra, U.S. Army, Global War on Terror veteran, and United States Chair of Veterans of Politics.
Steve Sanson Jr., U.S. Army.
Destiny Beavers, Armed Forces Chamber of Commerce.
Robert Foust, U.S. Army, Vietnam veteran.
We want to thank everyone for their service here today. Welcome everyone again. Wish them a happy Easter. We also have Jeff Miller here from CD4. Today is a questioning I'll be moderating it. We're going to have each panel member present one question that we'll probably have each candidate respond to. We'll try to limit those responses to 1 minute. In the beginning, we'll start with the introduction. Each one of you will be able to give a 1 minute introductory comment, a little bit about your background. And in the end, we'll give you time too to say why you're the best candidate for this position, okay, and why you should be elected, and why you should be endorsed. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Ron Q for Treasurer, Real Water, Lakeside Business Suites, Michael Broadway Realtor. Also like to recognize Annette Levy, who's here today, and all the work that she does. This is a nonpartisan event. We'd like to go ahead and get started right now. Let's start with Mr. Foust.
I don't have the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I tell you what, let's go down there then, that's where the microphone is.
Will they introduce themselves first?
Sure, we can have them introduce themselves. Who has the microphone right there?
Pass it down.
It should be on.
It's on?
Let me see it.
There's no lights, so it's...
Press the button.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm Jeff Miller, running for Congress, District 4. Excuse me. But it's good to be here. Good to be back. And I just want you guys to know I appreciate you inviting me. And I've been in the race doing this for a long time, over a year now, campaigning all over the state. And you know, I'm the populist candidate. I'm doing things for the people, and I mean that. I'm just a regular guy. So when I go out and I talk to the people, I want to do good things for them. It's not about the party. Yeah, I'm a Republican, but it's not about the party politics. A lot of people all across the state, they're sick of it. They just want help. They want to know, what are you going to do for me? And so here I am. So.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Luckner?
Hi, I'm Gregg Luckner. I've been in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, for 14 years now. I've been a realtor, real estate agent, and worked with veterans, active military. Haven't been involved in politics yet, so getting my feet wet here. But I realized that I'm with the Libertarian Party, and I've got the nomination for CD4, and I realized that we need different solutions. We're trying to get away from just Republican, Democrat politics, trying to introduce some new ideas, different ideas maybe. So instead of just arguing back and forth with the old ideas, try and maybe listen to the people and try and do something a little different.
Morning, my name is David Gibbs. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm a graduate of the Air Force Academy, 25-year Air Force veteran, retired from the Air Force in 2003. And I've worked in the defense industry and unmanned aircraft, different facets of unmanned aircraft ever since. And today I work for Defense Contractors Program Director Out of our office here in North Las Vegas, we have people who work around the world supporting operations that are going on. I've been involved in politics in Nevada since I retired from the Air Force. At the county level, at the state level, I've worked on campaigns. I'm a proud supporter of our president and what he's trying to do. One of the things that I believe we need to take a look at, and we'll probably talk some about it today, is some of the focus we needed to put on our veterans and the services that we provide them. I think we can do a better job of coordinating across different agencies to get the best for our vets. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Bill Townsend. I appreciate you having us all here today. I am a lifetime entrepreneur. I spent many years in the technology industry. Have two companies here in Las Vegas. One is a television production company. The other one is a pharmaceutical research and development firm, and also a nonprofit foundation. And like many, probably like everybody up here, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing out of Washington, D.C., and I decided to set my companies aside and make a run for Congress and bring what I call the 12 big ideas for Nevada into D.C. and try to make some positive changes.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to be before you today. My name is Rodney Smith and I am running to represent Nevada's 4th Congressional District. I'm a longtime resident of that district before it was the 4th. I was first stationed here in 1985. I worked for years on the range. I've worked some of America's most advanced military aircraft, some that are known and some that are still unknown. I'm not originally from Nevada, but I decided to adopt Nevada as my home. I see a lot of challenges that it has. I believe that it takes veterans because, as so many have stated, the Democrats and Republicans have not served us well. As a matter of fact, I think party politics is part of the problem. I am running as a nonpartisan candidate because when I wore this country's uniform, I represented all people, and I would like to represent them the same way in Congress, that I look out for all people's needs. Once again, my name is Rodney Smith, running for Nevada's 4th Congressional District.
My name is Ken Wegner. I'm U.S. Army retired. I was retired after the Gulf War. 3 years later, they retired me because of the news I received over there. So there's my Army part. I'm the only candidate in history that's been endorsed by other parties and candidates who are running against me. I've turned back every PAC, special interest group checks that's ever been sent to me. I won the Republican nomination for Congressional District 1, which is now 4, 3 times, without taking any of the dirty money. I have a signed pledge here, if you read it. This group who has endorsed me before will probably endorse me again. We have some really fine candidates up here this time, should represent the American people well. I have 4 good plans to bring water to the West and the rest of the country, to become energy independent. And one of our greatest threats that's out there that the American people don't seem to be hearing, they're hearing nothing about Russia. What we better start worrying about is this gentleman who's next to me, worked on some of the finest military weapons that the Air Force has. The Chinese have them now. The last group of people that were in the White House decided to let the technology go to China. The F-35 is now being made over in China but I think they're calling it the F-31. We need to stop all our high-tech jobs from leaving this country. We need to start making steel here again. People who say we can't bring industry back to America doesn't understand the American worker. And go back to the East Coast, you can see what's going on with people needing jobs. They'll take those jobs and we can do it. And we can become energy independent in less than 4 years. Thank you. Again, my name is Kenneth A.
And we just had another candidate for Congressional District 4. Can we pass the microphone down here? It's Amy Vilela. She's joined us today. Thank you for coming. Could you just give us a brief introductory comment about yourself, limited to 1 minute, please?
Sure. My name is Amy Vilela. I got involved in politics on the wake of my daughter's death. She died because she could not provide proof of insurance in a local hospital. I saw that we have a lot of cracks in our system and we need to have real leadership. You know, my husband and I have been residents here for about 8 years. My husband is an officer in the Air Force and I was a CFO. You know, when I went through this process, it really became abundantly clear to me that even when, you know, you are doing the things that are necessary, that there are still ways that people fall in the cracks in this country. So I'm going to bring a really unique mix to Congress in that I'm also a military spouse and family, but I've also been a businesswoman. who has had a loss because of the inability of our government to ensure that all of our citizens are safe and have the essentials of life. So I'm thankful to be here, and thank you for having me.
Okay, we're thankful that you could be here today too, and we're thankful for all the candidates. Appreciate those introductory comments. We'll get into some specific questions. We'll try to limit them. I'll try to watch the time. Give you enough time to get your answer in, but just try to do your best to be as brief as possible, at least keeping it under the 1 minute time. We'll go ahead and start with questions from our panel members that are here. If the panel member could say their name and introduce himself and then ask the question.
Hi, my name is Michael McDonald, VIPI Legislative Council. I'm working on, I wanted to ask you guys a question as to one of the root causes of so many of society's issues: anxiety, depression, mental illness, criminal history, drug use, teen pregnancy, mass shootings, is stemming from our family courts. The family court and the judicial system is in desperate need of reform. There is now a bill called HJ 121 for equal parenting. Would you guys support that, and what would you do for family and criminal law reform?
They might not be familiar with that bill. Is that a...
HJ 121 is a constitutional amendment for equal parenting. It should decrease litigation by 70% and stop a lot of the non-equality that's going on.
And where's that bill been presented at?
It's actually in Congress right now.
So it's...
Joint Resolution Bill HJ 121.
Thank you. Ms. Vilela?
I am familiar with that bill, and yes, I would support that. Having had children that have been through divorce, I understand how vital it is to have both parents involved in your children's lives, and that has always been a priority to me with my ex, making sure that we had a good relationship and that they had equal time and that they were able to really have the advantage of having both parents involved in their life, and I think that's very vital.
And I would just recommend that you go ahead and say your name when you give your answer too. That's probably good.
Sure. Yeah, Jeff Miller here. The HJ 121, is that what it was?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would have to look at the details of that. I just came out of divorce last month. A lot of people know that. Thankfully, my divorce was kosher. We were respectful with each other. But I know a lot of times that doesn't happen. I grew up with a single mom. So I understand it, and I understand it probably more than a lot of folks realize. But also talk about the criminal and family court reform. Yeah, we have to, because we have a problem. No one takes punishment seriously anymore. There comes a point, listen, I want people to be as free as possible, but mankind can be cruel. And so when they cross that line, justice has to be swift, it has to be firm, but not overreaching.
So you're just saying that justice in the family court should be swift and firm and not overreach?
He asked about a whole lot of stuff there. He talked about the criminal system. It's not just the family courts. Justice is supposed to be equal for all. But let's face it, it's not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Luckner, I think the question's about HJ
121, equal parenting and family criminal law reform.
HJ 121.
Yeah, hi, Gregg Luckner. I don't know specifically about that bill, but we're generally for a lot of judicial reform. I mean, as he's mentioning, criminal and family reform. There's just way too many laws and different things now that are conflicting with each other. I mean, we've got to simplify things somehow. If this bill simplifies the process and makes it easier for people to figure out, what the family wants to do and get it done, we're basically for it.
David Gibbs, thank you for the question. I'm not particularly familiar with HJ 121, but there are two parts of that raise an issue with me. Number one is you talked about judicial reform. We've all seen how activist judges are taking legislation or creating legislation from the bench. That has been an issue in this country for many years. It needs to be, there are beginnings to take a look at that. I think a lot of the judges that President Trump is looking to appoint, some of which are being held up for confirmation, take a less activist view about writing or changing legislation from the bench as much as just referring it back. As far as the family is concerned, there have been many government programs that have existed for over 50 years that in some cases have actually been detrimental to families. I remember as growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, and families where the fathers moved out in order to be able to qualify for more government programs. We need to take a look at how our government programs affect the families so that we are not putting our families in situations where we have to decide or where it is more financially beneficial for the father to move out than to remain in the house. A lot of our families we're finding out are cases, or for example, they talk about some of the folks who committed some of the mass shootings. A lot of criminals that are going to jail because they're coming from single parent households. In a lot of cases, the father's not around. And I think not having that guidance, kids going into gangs because that's where they see the male support coming from. And we need to readdress those and look at those programs in our government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Mr. Townsend?
Bill Townsend. I have not read that bill, although the premise is very intriguing to me. And one of the things that I'm very concerned about in our country is if you look at the mass shooters over the last 20, 30 years, the lack of the father figure in the family is present. 26 of the 27 last mass shooters did not have fathers in the home. If you look at our low-income communities, we have terrible situations in the black community. 73% of kids are born without a parent in the home, without a father in the home. Many of the times, this is related to the fact that the courts typically rule in favor of the mother. It's just been a historical fact in American history. But we do a very poor job of helping the courts understand the importance of fatherhood, especially to young boys. Young girls seem to do pretty well. They attach to their mother. There's a gender comparison there that works for them. But for a young boy, he really needs that father figure in his life.
So you're in favor of more equal time?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am divorced. I have 2 sons that live in Texas. I get to see them 1 weekend out of the month. It's not enough time. Luckily, with technology, Skype, messaging, I can communicate with them almost on a daily basis. But the fact of the matter is, I've had my sons come up to me and say, "Dad, we want to come out to Las Vegas for a semester." And the mother, will not think about it. And I don't want to have to drag somebody back into court to do something that would be good for my children. And I think we have to really look at these family laws and understand what the effect has been on our young people over the last generation and how we improve that into the future.
Thanks, Michael, for the question. My name is Rodney Smith. Actually, I've had a chance to chat with Michael about this very issue, and it was quite interesting that we had this chat shortly after having a discussion with some of the constituents in my district who brought up the same issue. It takes 2 people to make a child. Obviously, we know it takes 2 people to raise that child. This is something that is long overdue, and I am a supporter.
Number 5 on my pledge is I won't answer anything on a bill that I haven't read. It's only fair that I read everything so I can know the whole story before I comment. I can't say something about the family bill. In the 1965, when Mr. Gibbs there was saying when the President Johnson passed the Poverty Act bill, it took the fathers out of the homes. I grew up in Long Beach and Compton. We never knew we were poor, but all of a sudden I saw fathers leaving the homes because somebody gets sick in their family. Dad has to leave in order to get insurance. There's way better ways of doing that. When they closed, Duke Timber closed their plant, when the Chevy closed their plant, and all those fathers lost. This was in California. They had nowhere to go. In order to feed their family, they had to leave the house. This is unconscionable in today's society, that we could even allow that bill to still be on the record. Again, I can't comment on it because I haven't read it. And something that I will always do before I vote yes or no on any bill is read it. In Congress, we need to lower the number of pages that congressmen have to read on any bill. They can make them smaller, 100 pages or less, and in plain English, so that when you read it, you'll understand. not that anyone in here is illiterate, but when you see the kids that are graduating our schools, their reading level is quite lower than it was when I was in school. Again, I haven't read it, I can't comment it.
Thank you, Wegner. We'll go to the next question to John Moore.
Thank you all for being here. John Moore, former Nevada Assemblyman. To each of you, I guess, one, where do you stand on the ACA? And do you believe or not believe, and why, that healthcare is a, quote, right for all Americans?
Still.
Yes.
Let me start with you and we'll back here.
We need to appeal that.
Go ahead and say, it'd be
I'm
better
sorry,
to
my
say
name is
your
Kenneth
name.
Wegner.
This is, we are videotaping this and it's audio, and so want to make sure you guys get out that information.
Again, Kenneth Wegner. We need to repeal all of Obamacare. There's certain things that the federal government has a right to do, and one of them isn't giving insurance to everyone in this country. I know a lot of people that are hardworking, for instance, over at the Boyd Gaming Group. A lot of my friends there, they're paying taxes on their tips. A tip isn't required by law to, every time someone, but they have to pay taxes on it. Those are the same hardworking people that are having problems paying their health care at Boyd Gaming now. I'm not just singling out Boyd Gaming, it's just I have a lot of friends that are working there, and their insurance there is now, it's terrible what they're paying for less care. On my website, there's gonna be the 3 things that we can do in this country. If you go online and read it, you'll understand. We can either give everybody poor health care, we can let the people who work get their health care from their companies, or the third is just let it go as it was. A lot of people didn't have health care, but I've noticed when I go into the emergency room, or when I'm over, we've had some problems, and I've been in the emergency room a lot lately. I've noticed a lot of people there don't have to pay any insurance, and yet they make sure that I had my insurance card for my daughter. It doesn't make any sense to me that the way the new Obamacare, is what we used to call it, is set up. It needs to be totally reformed. But I should also be able to go to another state and buy insurance if it's a better insurance policy. Don't limit me to what this state is. I know I only have a minute, so it's a lot longer than 1 minute on a conversation.
Rodney Smith, healthcare is a necessity. Either you have it or you don't. And if you cannot afford it, you will suffer the ills. Society will suffer those ills. You will lose your home, you will lose your family, your car. Literally, you can lose your life. This is America. It is the greatest country in the history of the world. We are the most productive country in the world. We have more wealth than any other country in the world. I believe that it is a sense of pride for us to be able to use that productivity, that wealth, to ensure that the least among us have equal access, and not just access, but actually has equal health care that is the best in the world. People often talk about it's a burden on society. I say just the opposite. When you have to pay the excess cost of people using emergency room services for services that would be much less expensive to us all, it becomes a tax on us all. We need to have a healthy country, just like we need to have a healthy economy, and I think the Affordable Care Act actually doesn't go far enough. I am a veteran. I participate in the VA system. The VA system basically is a government-run system. That VA system, when I'm able to get in there, gives me some of the best care. So I don't believe that because it is a government-run system, that it is not a good system. As a matter of fact, as a military man in the best military in the United States, that is government-run. It is the best military in the world. Everyone knows that. I think we can have the best healthcare system. I am a supporter of ACA. The only difference is I think it needs to go further. And I actually am in support of a single payer system.
Bill Townsend. My belief on ACA is, one, it was passed without anybody looking at the bill in completion. Secondly, it did accomplish some things, which was to get more people on the healthcare rolls, which was good, because preventive medicine is better than reactive medicine. But at the same time, I have a problem with my party, the Republicans, in that they spent countless hours and probably millions of dollars trying to repeal something. They failed over and over and over again. And part of the reason they failed is they didn't have an alternative. So my view on ACA is you take what works, you keep it. You take what doesn't work and you fix it. And when we look at healthcare in America, the real issue isn't the lack of access. The real issue is that we have insurance companies which are basically intermediaries. They're intermediaries that are making billions of dollars to basically shuffle paper. And then we have prescription drug costs which are out of control. One of the things in my 12 big ideas for Nevada is something that we call median market pricing, which basically would change the prescription drug industry so that a prescription drug that's approved for sale in the US could be only charged the average the average worldwide price of that drug plus 10%. That would that would aggravate a lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of lobbyists. But what it would do is it would drop prescription drug prices by 40% in America. And we have the ability to say to private industry, if you want to participate in our healthcare system, if you want to be part of Medicare, Medicaid, you will put price controls on your drugs, and you will not gouge the American people any longer. So I believe that we have to take what's been given to us and fix what is wrong, and then move forward from there. Thanks, Bill.
David Gibbs. I have never been a fan of the Affordable Care Act. The biggest reason is that it puts mandates out there that in many cases are to the benefit of the government, not to the benefit of the people. We have seen healthcare insurance rates skyrocket. One of my daughters graduated from college before she had a job. We were able to get her an insurance policy for $68 a month with a $1,000 deductible that covered everything she needed. 2 years later, my other daughter graduated from college. Obamacare had taken hold. That same insurance policy didn't exist anymore, and we were looking at $300 a month with a $4,000 deductible, which means she would have had to be seriously sick just to get any money from the insurance, plus the fact of almost 5 times the cost. That's what the Affordable Care Act has done for a lot of people. I like the idea of pre-existing conditions. I think that whatever decision we make as a government, as a country, to go forward needs to continue that process and look at how do we deal with premiums for folks with pre-existing conditions. Because you can't shut somebody off just because they've had something in the past. I had a brother-in-law had thyroid cancer and was never able to get health insurance again, even though he was healthy for 40 years afterwards. That didn't make sense to me. So we need to look at that one. But whatever we decide to do and what we need to take a look at, we need to bring in folks and actually have hearings rather than write a bill behind closed doors. That's 2,000-3,000 pages long, and then say, vote on this in 2 weeks or 2 days. And we need to do this right with the drug companies, the medical professionals, patients, and hospital people, hospital administrators, to bring them in and figure out what is the right way to do this for the American people. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Gregg Luckner. I think the ACA is a failure and has hurt healthcare in general. I mean, especially prices have gone through the roof for a lot of people, and it's become unaffordable. Even if it's affordable to get health care, the deductibles and everything else have become just insane. And you know, we find like the Republicans say, we don't like the ACA, but we want a better ACA. We want a better health care plan. Okay, the Democrats say, well, we want single payer. We want to go beyond ACA. We want to go, you know, complete government health care. We're kind of thinking, go back to free market solutions as much as possible. Yes, there should be safety nets. Obviously, the VA has their own health care, and that works in some cases. In other cases, it doesn't work very well. We've had issues with the VA health care. What we need to do is go back to, you know, when things were somewhat affordable, look at the problems that we had and come up with better free market solutions. If we can't come up with a free market solution that covers everyone and, you know, stops people from losing their houses and their lives and everything else, then yes, we should have some safety nets in there, and we should go to the healthcare providers the hospitals and the healthcare companies and work with them and see how can we provide this, maybe even avoid the insurance companies because they're at a lot of the times part of the problem, but go to the healthcare providers and say, how can we provide healthcare to everybody more affordably without having the government involved. If we can't, if the government has to get involved, again, getting rid of a lot of these government regulations, we can cut down the cost of healthcare quite a bit just by doing that. But if we can't do that enough to bring it down for everybody to have affordable healthcare, we have to then let the government maybe provide some safety nets for people. But as much as we can, free market solutions are the way to go.
Thank you. So John, to answer your question, he says healthcare right.
Your name?
Oh, Jeff Miller. No, healthcare is not a right. It's a service that it is. Now, there's a lot going. This is one of these gray areas. There's not. Look, no one's going to disagree. The healthcare system needs to be reformed. Everybody has different ideas on how to get there, but we have a broken system. The prices are through the roof. The hospitals, the doctors, the insurance companies, they're gouging the patients. They're gouging everybody. That's a whole other issue within this stuff right there. And then you hear the other side, especially Bernie, people are going to die on the streets. No, they're not. Because you go to the emergency room, you're going to be seen. It may not be the quality of service that you prefer, but they're going to see you, okay? And not just that, the whole Obamacare thing, here's what makes me mad about that. You're going to take something that people can't afford anyway. You're going to have this deductible through the roof. Then if you can't afford that, you're going to get a fine for it. That's totalitarianism right there. It's out of control. And, you know, it's... The Democrats touched this last. I don't want to make this a party issue, but they own this. Now, we can sit here and discuss, we got to look at this, we got to come out and come up with ideas. As a long-term thinker, that's what I am. I try to find solutions. Now, I may not have to answer everything, but I'm trying. We have to get down to brass tacks. We have to start looking at all this stuff. Now, I'm a natural rights guy, okay? But people need to start taking better care of themselves. People learn how to do more natural medicine, get on herbs, vitamins, whatever it is, educate yourself. Because if you're relying on the government or a doctor or the healthcare system to take care of you, it's going to fail you.
My name is Amy Vilela. Healthcare is a human right. And as a military spouse, I know when we go overseas and we're in action, my husband is there in Afghanistan, we don't leave one of ours behind. 35,000 Americans a year die from a lack of health care, including my daughter, who was seen in an ER, and they did refuse care. We have got to do better than this. In this great country, we should not be having 35,000 people a year dying. I know that my daughter had been able to be on TRICARE, that she would still be alive. We have some of the best care in TRICARE, and that is what is provided by the government. Besides it being an issue of humanity, our government is already paying for people to be seen. It would have cost a couple $1,000s if the emergency room had treated my daughter. It cost the American taxpayers over $500,000 to have her die. If we were to institute Medicare for all, our government would save $17 trillion over 10 years. And as a CFO, I can tell you what goes on in the boardrooms is not, I hope my patients are getting the best care possible. It's how can I get maximum profit? Doesn't belong in things that deal with our lives. And also for small and medium-sized businesses, if we were to have a Medicare for all system, this would make a more level playing field and be able to let people in this country become entrepreneurs and start really creating technology and industries that we can actually improve our economy overall. Thank you.
And I just pulled the mic apart, so I'm going to speak loud till it gets plugged back in. I'm Robert Adams, U.S. Army.
You're being recorded, you gotta speak on the microphone.
Okay, I'm going to try. So hi, Robert Adams, U.S. Army. And during the Reagan administration, we implemented a drug war. And according to the FBI's own numbers, the drug war has produced exponentially more drugs and more drug fatalities. A lot of problems have come from the drug war. So my question is, and you can either make it just a yes or no, or you can elaborate. The question is which has done more damage to the United States of America, the war on illegal street drugs or the illegal street drugs themselves? And I want to thank you all for being here, by the way.
Amy Vilela. I think the war on drugs was a complete failure. We have a huge population of nonviolent offenders sitting in jail right now for cannabis. Not only do I want to reform our prison system, I also want to legalize cannabis nationally and make sure we get people who are in there with nonviolent offenses out and get them back in the community and being productive. We have 25% of the world's population in prisons when we only have 5% of the population. So we need to do something in this country and decide what are our priorities, what are we going to spend our money on, and make sure that we are spending it that is the betterment for the American people, not to their detriment.
You know, the cause, you know, they had good intentions, but you know what they say about good intentions, right? Drugs, the hard stuff, the heroin, the opiates, all that stuff, it steals your soul, makes you a bad person. It affects your health, makes you do bad things is what I mean by that, okay? Now, it doesn't make you a bad person because you fall into addiction. That's a whole other subject in itself, so I just want to clarify that, okay? But really, the bad thing is the cartels, the crime that comes with it. We have MS-13 here in Las Vegas. I drive down the street on the east side, on Judges, campaign signs. There's Mexican Mafia, MS-13, graffiti all over these things. It's the cause and effect. It's not always the drug itself, because a lot of times people say, oh, it's a victimless crime. They're only hurting themselves, but they're breaking their families apart. The children I feel bad for. The children who are born to addictive mothers, it's cause and effect. But to me, really the thing is the crime that comes with it, the cartels. Our border here, Mexico, they're coming in and out, constantly bringing the stuff in. All this money has been wasted, and we've put ourselves in this position now. We kicked the can down the road, the chickens have come home to roost, and now we have the cartels right here in our own neighborhood. That's the scary part. That's where we have to crack down on. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's a bad deal all the way around.
So let's, let me comment on that. Let's kind of try to focus on, Ms. Vilela said she was in favor of legalizing cannabis federally. We're talking about the drug war, and then you're also seeing a lot of things in the news about this opioid epidemic related to the money they're trying to spend on that. So probably kind of focus your comments on those things, because that's really what a lot of things that are going on right now, right? With the marijuana and the opioid epidemic.
Yeah, Gregg Luckner, yeah, I mean, the war on drugs, that's definitely, as a libertarian, I could go on for many, many hours about that, and the failure of the war on drugs. And that was way before Reagan, that was Nixon, and before that even, they started the war on drugs. Especially nowadays, when more than half the states have some kind of legalized marijuana, it's ridiculous that cannabis, marijuana, is still on the Schedule I illegal drugs schedule. I mean, as congressmen, we can actually do something about that. Congress can actually take that off the Schedule I drug. Now, if it was up to me, there wouldn't even be a Schedule I drugs. There wouldn't be a war on drugs. We would basically be treating people if they needed help, and basically making sure that if people really wanted to get drugs, that they'd be as safe as possible, basically. Every time we start a war on something, whether it's prohibition, you know, anything we've done like that, where we've started a war on something, we've ended up causing these drug cartels, we've ended up causing, you know, the mafia began because of prohibition, basically. I mean, every time we try and do something like that and outlaw something, we create outlaws.
Are you saying that no drugs should be illegal?
My policy would be no drugs would be illegal. They wouldn't necessarily be legal. We wouldn't be, you know, saying everybody, but we would decriminalize the usage of them so that we wouldn't be putting people in jail for having an addictive problem or something like that. I mean, the problem is we should be treating people that have addictions. We shouldn't be throwing them in jail. We have a big problem with jails being filled with people who are using drugs either, and a lot of people use cocaine. You know, it's known in Hollywood and Wall Street and all that. They use cocaine all over the place. They didn't get sent to jail But somebody on the street, some kid might get sent to jail for his life because he tried cocaine or something, or he may overdose because the cocaine was, mixed with something else that was dangerous for them. The war on drugs is not helping any of those things. It's not stopping any of those things, and it's not helping any of those things. And that's one of my main focuses, is to not only end the war on cannabis, marijuana especially, because, again, because it's legal here, we have to be able to, because it's federally illegal, we can't even do banking. The marijuana distributors we have out here can't even do national banking because it's federally illegal. I mean, we have to start with that and then work our way towards decriminalizing it altogether.
Thank you. David Gibbs. More than 55,000 people a year die in this country from opioids overdoses. 95% of the heroin that comes into this country comes through Mexico. The fentanyl, which they just noted in the media this week, is what killed Prince. Most of which is made in China. The majority of it comes through Mexico. So that in and of itself is justification for controlling our border more with Mexico. Build the wall. Some people say, well, they'll just find another way to get in. Okay, we'll go find that way and we'll take care of that too, as we have done. But that's one of the biggest issues. The second part of it, the opioids. There is a hospitals in Colorado have started banding together, if you will, to start looking at the numbers and the amounts of opioid prescriptions that are written, trying to figure out how they can cut down on doctor shopping, if you will, or patients getting continued opioid prescriptions indefinitely. That is one way to start looking at it. There is also an effort that the president has started working with pharmaceutical companies to start to decrease the emphasis that is being paid or being used on prescribing opioids for pain. There are other avenues to look at for pain, things that are significantly less addictive. That's also one of the efforts that's being made by this association in Colorado. So those are two of the things to take a look at. Enforcement is obviously an issue. One of the things that other countries look at is they have significantly stiffer punishments for drug dealers than we do in this country. And we need to step that up. If you're a drug dealer, you're basically in quasi-direct way a murderer. You are providing a product to somebody that ultimately can and may kill them. And we need to look at our drug enforcement law from that perspective when it comes from going after drug dealers, and rather than giving a slap on the wrist, we need to increase the punishment. I know Singapore made a comment to them that if they arrest a drug dealer, they try him for murder. And that's one of the things that maybe, I don't know if we need to go that far yet, but maybe that's something to take a look at, is to tie the drug dealer to fatalities caused by the drugs that they sold. Thank you.
Bill Townsend, the war on drug has been an epic failure. Had we taken the resources that we put against fighting small-time users and focused on dealers and how drugs are getting into America, and put the other money into treatment, we would have had a much better response to the entire problem. We have issues today where, as David said, people are shopping doctors. They're going to see 2 or 3 doctors so they can get their OxyContin or whatever from multiple doctors. We have ways that we can measure that. We have ways that we can monitor that. We can work with pharmaceutical companies, and but pharmacies, to understand that, if Bill Townsend goes in and he's picking up a prescription for X at CVS, and then he goes over to Walgreens and gets the same prescription, we have ways that we can monitor that and then address that. We need to start making some of the doctors responsible for overprescribing. We need to ensure that when people want treatment, it's there for them. But at the same time, I'm slightly torn on the issue, because in a way we can't legislate morality. If you're going to go out and you're going to use fentanyl or heroin or even alcohol, and Emory University just released a study, alcohol is the #1 gateway drug in America. It's not cannabis, it's alcohol. And yet, you don't hear any calls to work on ways to control alcohol anymore, because it's just a given that that's part of our culture. But we know that there are solutions to the drug problem. We know that there are solutions to cracking down on how it's coming into America, whether it's a border wall, whether it's leveraging our military, and let's go down to the border and let's use drones and see what's really going on. And if we have packaging coming across delivering drugs, let's take them out. There are ways to deal with it, but the way that we've done it in the past, where we are going out and we are putting young men in jail at alarming rates for having an ounce of cannabis or something minor, it's wrong. It's just morally wrong to lock people up and basically take away their livelihoods when they get out of jail over something as minor as an ounce of cannabis.
Rodney Smith, I want to get directly to your question with an answer. The drug war has been a failure. It has been a financial failure. It has done, in great degree, a large contributor to the failure of our families, which has been what has created a lot of other ills in this country. When people talk about punishing drug dealers, it's not that I'm against that punishment, but let's make the punishment equitable, and let's go after those pharmaceutical companies and executives that have been pushing drugs into our communities. As a matter of fact, they push drugs in the VA. Many veterans are hooked on some opioids because of pharmaceutical companies and sales reps pushing those drugs in the VA. So if we're gonna start putting people in jail, if we're gonna have a death penalty for drug pushers, then let's go for some of the biggest drug pushers that have jeopardized the lives of some of our most vulnerable, and that would start at the top with the pharmaceutical companies and executives.
If you don't hear anything else I say, you need to listen to this. So please put down your phones and pay attention. After my daughter got cancer, she got addicted to drugs. We sent her to Hawaii to get away from it. After she was beat up and raped at the University of Hawaii, we sent her to one of those clinics. All those clinics everyone's talking about, oh, let's give them more money. Guess what? Failure rate over 80%. Over 80%. I've arrested, I can't even tell you how many people for drugs. I mean, pushers, not the guy on the street. I don't do that. The guy on the street gets his drugs from somewhere. And they're not, heroin doesn't grow here. Cocaine doesn't grow here. The reason we're a failure of the drug war, because we didn't do anything about it. I can show you 80 families that are getting over $700 million. Just listen to the number, 700 million. And the true number is $74 billion in US funds alone. From people buying drugs. We know the families. If we declare war on something, we go after it. We went after Hussein when we declared war on him, right? So if we're going to declare war, let's call it a war. And I'm going to tell you right now how we can do it. This will be the last thing. I won't say anything else no one wants, but after this. If we did what President Kennedy did, get the states, what they call the United States from this hemisphere and Central America, and say, listen, we're going to go after all these people. We will gladly split the money with you because we're going to impound every penny from every family that's a cartel. Take all their money. And of course we need to secure our border. I've said that 12 years ago. We need to put troops on our border to stop this shit from coming across our border that's killing our kids. And the real number, it's about 88,000 a year die. Every year. Number one killer in America is really drugs. 88,000 last year. Go after the cartels. Let's call it a war. I've never arrested anybody who was high on pot that wanted to fight me. How about heroin and cocaine when they do those cannonballs or whatever they're calling them now? Them boys want to fight. They want to fight. They have no consequences when we get in a fight with them. Nothing ever happens to them. They're out, go back under a new name and then come back into this country. Let's go after the people that are providing the drugs. And yeah, let's declare war and do something about it. I've been in war before. My son was wounded in Afghanistan. I know the cost of sending our soldiers somewhere. But let's send them where it's going to help the American people. Let's go after the people that are flooding this poison and killing our kids. Again, my name's Kenneth Wegner, W-E-G-N-E-R.
Hi, my name is Nathan Atkins. My name is Nathan Atkins, U.S. Army. Before I ask my question, though, I want to do a point of clarification. Mr. Townsend, you made a statement, and your statement was 73% of African Americans are born without a father in the home. Check the statistic, they're born out of wedlock.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between
Six-
unmarried people
Yeah.
and fatherless people.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
let's make sure the statistics are accurate. My question to the panel is very simple. States have spoken. They have said they want cannabis to be legal in their state, whether it's medicinal or whether it's recreational. What will you do to make sure that financial reform is put in place so these businesses can operate and function appropriately? I think it starts with you, sir.
Like I said, I don't care about pot one way or another. What you do in your house is not my business. Don't go out on the street, don't get high and drive your car, just like don't get drunk and drive your car.
The question is financial reform
I-
for the businesses to function properly.
So right now, in the federal law is that it's
Right, it's a
illegal
class,
marijuana.
yeah, right.
So, and then in,
Yeah, I have no problem with changing that law. Like I said, what you do in your house is not my business. What amount of alcohol you put in your body isn't my business. Just don't go out and harm other people.
From the federal level, we really have to decriminalize marijuana. Prohibition has never worked well in this country. As a matter of fact, it just simply has not worked. So it doesn't work. It didn't work well with alcohol. It's not working well with drugs. It is a shame that people who are legally in business in the states are not able to put their money in federal institutions or as freely as others. So we need to look at whatever rules, regulations, laws that are preventing those types of things. And since the states have spoken, we need to provide a means and a mechanism for commerce, honest and legal commerce, to take place with cannabis and ensure that barriers to commerce, whether it's with a new drug that works for medicinal purposes, and in many states that's recreational, commerce needs to flow when it is legal.
Bill Townsend, Congress, regardless of whether the classification is Schedule 1 or not on cannabis, Congress can take action to reform the banking laws to allow businesses to bank nationwide, for the banks not to be under the threat of punishment. And quite frankly, it needs to happen because right now what you have is you've got a shadow economy still of dealing with cash. I met somebody here 2 years ago who took me to a warehouse where he has $117 million in cash from operations in California and Nevada. He has 4 full-time, round-the-clock armed guards. This is ludicrous. It's so easy to change the banking laws to enable companies who are licensed under states, as it currently occurs, to be able to bank nationwide, and I would push for that, absolutely.
Dave Gibbs pretty much did what he said. We do need to allow these companies, because they're legal here, to be able to participate in all the financial aspects that they need to do, banking, loans, whatever, investors, all of the aspects that any other company would have the ability to do because the product is legal here as it is in some of the other states. I'm not a fan at this time of totally changing it from a Schedule 1 drug, partly because of the fact that I'm not 100% sure that there are not long-term consequences. We've seen people, I know people, I've had a couple of friends of mine who have used marijuana most of their lives, and I can tell you they are not as productive today as they were 30 years ago. That's another issue to be dealt with. But on the financial side, we do need to modify the rules to allow states that have, and maybe it's not just marijuana, it might be other things as well, to allow them to have full access to all of the aspects of financial systems that any other business would have. Thank you.
Gregg Luckner. Yeah, I was the first person to mention about the problems with banking, with the marijuana businesses that we have out here. More than half the states have some kind of legalized marijuana trade, and most of the time they did it, the reason why they voted for that was because of the tax income that they got off of the marijuana business. So the states are saying, okay, we want the money from this marijuana business, we want to make it legal, we want to make it accessible, we want to make it safe for people to go to a store, get the right amount of marijuana, get all that, but yet federally, and it would be great if there was a way to make it so that they could do banking and everything, but because of RICO laws and because of other federal banking laws, you really have to get it off of the Schedule I drug list before you can make it fiscally able to do banking and other things that they need to really do. And we can't grow the businesses that we want to grow and get the tax money that we need to get until we take care of this on a federal level. So all these states should gang together. Every congressman, every senator from these states that have legalized marijuana or even getting to that point should be on the floor of the Senate and the House every day pushing to deschedule marijuana basically so that we can do something more federally banking wise and get more investment into the marijuana business.
Yeah, and look, we're setting up these dispensaries for failure. They're sitting on a bunch of cash. We're setting them up for potential robbery. We're setting them up for potential hostile takeover from the cartel again, which there has been stories of that happening in Colorado. Now, one thing that we could really do if we really wanted to, we could tie cannabis into the commodities market. Then that changes everything, because right now you can invest in marijuana stocks. You can. Most of them are going to be penny stocks, but you can do that. But if you tie that into the commodities market, therefore now it's fair game. The banking system can get involved in that. And also right now, there's a good opportunity for some entrepreneur out there to set up their own little credit union where they can have their own thing just pop up and they can just funnel money around to each other how they do it, right? But having people sitting, like you said, $113 million someone has in their warehouse, that's prime for money laundering. There's no paper trail on this stuff. So it's common sense for the government to say, hey, and look, I'm a states' rights guy. I think it should be up to the individual states, and I think the people should vote on it. Now, if there ever comes a time where people say, we don't want this anymore, and all this, times change, people say, Dave was saying there's some long-term effects, people change their mind, then the people should vote on that. Politicians, candidates, honestly should stay out of it. But if you want to get it, like I said, regulated, tied to the commodities, it changes the world, changes everything.
Amy Vilela. So we do have to have cannabis legalized and decriminalized on a federal level, not only so that we can get the restrictions off of banks, but we